One of the movies I purchased in my recent visit to HMV Swindon was the recent 4K release of Saturday Night Fever. I found myself rather impressed with this one, so although it's always been a film that seems to generate mixed opinions, I think it's interesting enough to be worthy of a full review. Saturday Night Fever on 4K. I was actually surprised how good it looked right from the opening titles. Normally, because these would have been applied optically back in the days when Saturday Night Fever was made, you'd have degradation in image quality that is easy to discern, but it's not so much on this one. However, many of you will look at those titles as they come on the screen, particularly Saturday Night and then Fever, which is flashing. That was intended to replicate the look of a neon sign. Possibly doesn't really work as well as the filmmakers would have hoped, but that was the intention, and that's why they look slightly blurry around the edges. So neon lights was the look they were going for, and totally fitting to a film based around a discotheque. Another thing that I thought interesting during those opening titles was John Travolta's character. He stops at a takeaway pizza parlour and the girl that serves him is actually his sister. Then at the end of the title sequence he's back to the paint shop where he works and the lady he's serving is actually his mother. So it was quite a family affair for the Travoltas during the opening of this film, but it's certainly not a family friendly film. Beware, this one has got plenty of sexism, bad language, racism, all sorts of things that would be frowned upon today, and for that reason I don't think there is any way a film like this could actually be made today. And therein lies the reason why this film, a massive success in 1977, was re-edited and reissued in 1978 and given a PG certification in America and an A certification over here in the UK. And that meant that everyone would be able to get to see John Travolta's fabulous performance on the disco dance floor. And that was when I first saw the film, and I didn't like it much. For my young eyes at the time, the sort of sleazy, depressing nature of the film really did not appeal, and it was a few years later when Portland Films, who at the time were on Shaftesbury Avenue, they closed down and they were having a sale of all their Super 8 films, and among them was this 200-foot reel of Saturday Night Fever, which my brother and I purchased for £1. As the years went on, this 200-foot reel of selected scenes rather grew on me, and I started finding myself liking the look of Saturday Night Fever, and so on a television broadcast some years ago I looked at it again and found I'd started to like the film as a whole. And here we are, years later, the 4K's come out. I thought it's time I had another look at that. I always loved the soundtrack, I love the disco setting. Let's take another look. And for me, it's a bit of a revelation. And much like Get Carter, which was 1971 that we got on 4K earlier this year, I can look at this in a new light today and see it for the classic that it really is. Just like Get Carter, it's a bit of a window into a time gone past, and in this case, it's Brooklyn in New York in 1977. Possibly not quite the accurate portrayal of New York that many people in New York would have known back then, but it does give a window into what some of it might have been like, and I am enjoying films like that more and more these days. Must be getting old, I suppose. It had an estimated budget of around $3 million, and it took at the worldwide box office $237 million. It has an aspect ratio of 185 to 1 approximately, which is interesting because the Blu-ray has an aspect ratio of 178 to 1, so that will completely fill a widescreen television. But if you're projecting and you're masking off your image, doesn't matter at all, you get that full cinematic aspect. And I think it's just as well because apparently there's one scene towards the end of the film where you would have seen the microphone, which I don't believe you can in this 185 to 1 aspect ratio. The sound is Dolby Digital 5.1 and I was really impressed with it. It's sort of subtle, but it puts you into the discotheque and almost puts you on the dance floor. The running time is 118 minutes. Everyone is really good in this film, and no wonder John Travolta was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar. Lynn Gorney was the perfect choice as his co-star, but keep an eye out for the continuity errors with the different hairstyles. I think that was something that went slightly awry during the editing process. The Blu-ray in the pack is dated 2009 and appears to be a transfer from a low contrast print. Everything on it is far brighter than it is on the 4K, but if you switch between the two, you can see an immediate perceptible difference between that Blu-ray and the 4K. The 4K has far better density, far better colour, and once again for me it's the difference between looking at a film and a video, with the Blu-ray being the video. Now, I got this from HMV Swindon, as I said, and best news of all, it was just £15 because of their Black Friday Cyber Monday sale, where they had 25% off just about everything, and so this was knocked down from £19.99 to £15. Darker scenes can lack a little clarity at times, but that's quite normal, and projecting this one onto a big screen will show up any film grain more easily, but that too is fairly normal. Disco scenes are variable at times owing to the dark nature of them, but very impressive to look at overall. The final magic ingredient is the soundtrack, with the tracks from the Bee Gees being the big standout, but there are plenty of other great tracks, and some of us still have the original singles. So, a film I didn't much like when I first saw it in 1978, but today I think is a classic. And what about this fabulous reflective slipcover? Yes, I think if you like Saturday Night Fever or you want to give it a try, now is the time with this new 4K UHD disc. I think it's rather good, and if you can stand the bad language and things like that, I think it's one to recommend. It does also come with extras on the Blu-ray only, and among those, because some of them are quite interesting, but among them is dance lessons, so you too could be dancing like John Travolta and Lynn Gorney, just like my wife and I do in here when we've secretly got the discotheque on. There's been some progress with the HMV tag videos, and Blu-ray Baz is the first to upload shots of his local branch in Winchester. I'll include that in an upcoming video. And Andy, Electric Geek, has also shot his local branch, which is Ayr in Scotland, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. So I'll do an update of that in a future video, and it may be with a review of War of the Worlds When Worlds Collide, which is quite an interesting double disc. But beware on this. The whole thing is 4:3, so 1:3:3 aspect ratio, which may put some of you off. Another one that we watched last night is an Arrow release for Wild Things. Now, I don't think this is the best film in the world. I've never actually seen it before. This wasn't my cup of tea really when it was out in 1998. But because it's such an interesting Arrow pack, they're always good, the Arrow releases, that I thought I'd show you quickly what comes in this. Now, it's one of those where all the extras are on the 4K disc, and in fact that is all you get in the pack. And I know some people do get a bit upset that they don't have a Blu-ray as well as a 4K, but really, what is the point when everything is on the 4K? But you get postcards in this, a double-sided poster, the new artwork and the original artwork, postcards which I presume are front of house sets, and quite a substantial booklet with plenty of pages in there, things to read, and stills from the film. So another great release from Arrow Films. And there's another thing I know people like to see, is it's quite a sturdy box. So as people say, won't get any shelfware, but the secret for not getting any shelfware is to keep the cellophane, the shrink wrap on it, and you do that just by slitting down the sides, and then you can slide everything out, and that will stay on there for many years. I've got some Super 8s where I left the shrink wrap on 40 years ago, still on there perfectly, and the boxes still look brand new. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like and perhaps consider subscribing, so I'll be encouraged to carry on creating content like this again in the future. Until the next video, bye bye for now.